off the top of Daf Yudches, and yesterday's Daf, which we're continuing a little bit, is one subject really. Korban on that day, so then you could bring it for another 6 days, 7 days altogether. That's dangerous, kind of.
I know, be careful. That's why I avoid it a little bit. If that gets too hot for me, please tell me.
The fact that Shavuos is called Chag HaKotzir is Zer Chag Shat HaChogig V'Kotzir V'Omer Zeh Atzeres. The fact that it's called Chag HaKotzir, the simple pshat is, of course, that's the season of the reaping, but not that you reap on the Chag. But the Gemara is making a drush that the fact that it's called Chag HaKotzir, that means that it's both the Chag and also it's a Kotzir. At the same time, it's a holiday, and also you're reaping, but you can't be on Shavuos itself. The simple pshat just means that it's the season of the reaping, but the Gemara is taken on a drush level that it means literal, that you're reaping at the same time as the Chag, and it can't be literal because you can't reap on Shavuos. It must be that the next 7 days, the next 6 days are also considered part of the Chag as far as the Kabbanis, and therefore it's not a contradiction to be able to reap on those days because it's really a weekday. It's very similar to the last drush which we had, which was on the pasuk that says, Ukrosem uvakutzrechem. Over there, Ukrosem mikra kodesh betzim hayom. That was about Shavuos, and then right next to it, it said uvakutzrechem is kitzir artzechem. You should give payah. The same, and the Gemara said, how could it be if it's on the Chag you're going to cut your field? And there must be the 6 days that are following. It's still called part of the Chag. It's almost the same idea, but here the Gemara talks about the word Chag HaKotzir alone. Also implies the same idea that you're cutting on the Chag, and that can't be literal. So it must mean that there's days of Tashlumim. Rabbi Yochanan argues on that drush of Ashlokish. Probably the Chor is also arguing on the drush before, maybe, but the Gemara doesn't talk about it. Rabbi Yochanan, all to the same kasha. It's Sukkot was also called similarly, just like Chag HaKotzir, there's the holiday of the reaping. This is called the holiday of the harvest. And then do you mean to say literally that you're going to harvest on the Chag? Could you harvest on the Chag? You can't be. And here the Gemara has to go a little bit further because Sukkot has Chol HaMoed. By Shavuos, there's no Chol HaMoed. So if it says that you reap on the Chag, obviously it means the days after the Chag, even though it's not officially the Chag, but you could bring Karbanos. But here by Sukkot, there is a possibility to say maybe it's going on Chol HaMoed. Ela b'Chol HaMoed, Chol HaMoed Mishari also. That the Gemara takes for granted you're not allowed to reap on Chol HaMoed, which is going to coming up the Sugya as a tangent. The Gemara is going to come up a whole Sugya about doing Malach on Chol HaMoed. But it wouldn't make us any better. The Gemara says that it would mean that reaping on Chol HaMoed, you're not allowed to do Malach on Chol HaMoed either. Is that what it means? You can't. You surely can't do Malach on Yantif. So Chag HaKotzir can't mean that you do Asifa on Yantif. There's a drash over here. It says Chag HaKotzir, and Rabbi Yochanan is asking, according to you, Shlokish, that you took it literally. Chag HaKotzir means that it's on the Chag. You're going to be Kotzer. So then Chag HaKotzir had the same kasha. You should have had the same kasha. How is it possible to be Chag HaKotzir? Also Mishari. So again, the Gemara's question is that you can't take a literal Chag HaKotzir because you're not allowed to be Osef Chag. Now here you don't have the answer about Tashlumin because there's no Tashlumin. You're not going to have another 7 days after Sukkot to bring the Karbanos. You have the whole 7, 8 days to bring Karbanos during Sukkot. So Rabbi Yochanan is showing that the drasha is not a valid drasha. It just means that Pashut Pshat, like we learned without any drashas, that it means that it's the holiday in the season of the Asifa, it's the holiday in the season of the Ksira. Okay, there was a little bit going on, so I just would like to start again the Gemara and get it simple. The Gemara is looking for a source. How do you know that you have Tashlumin or bringing Karbanos after Shavuos? Shavuos is 1 day. Yesterday we had the Sugya that you're allowed to bring Karbanos for the following 6 days. We had 2 drashas yesterday. Here is another drasha. The drasha is on top of the page. It brings for Shlokish, Chag HaKotzir. The fact that it's called Chag HaKotzir implies that on a drash level that you're gonna. Shlokish also agrees. The simple pshat means in the season of the Kotzir there's going to be a Chag HaKotzir. Not that you actually do Ksira on the Chag, but on the drash level, the Shlokish is saying that it means literally that you are reaping. How could that be? It must be in the following days, the days that follows Shavuos for 6 days. Those are the Tashlumin days, so it's called Chag HaKotzir. Good.
So that's the other name instead of saying Hol HaMoed.
No.
Chag
There's,
HaKosher?
no. Chag HaKosher means Shavuos. It means the holiday of the reaping. But there's a drush to say that, of course, you don't reap on Shavuos, but the next
Right.
6 days also you're allowed to be slow bring korbanos, and that's why it's not a contradiction that you're allowed to reap on those days. Those days are not the holiday. The 6 days following Shavuos are
Right.
not a holiday, but you're allowed to bring the korbanos if you didn't bring it on the first. On the
But why
first day.
call it Ho Moed?
No, we didn't get to that yet. I'm just reviewing a little
Could be
bit.
a different name. then.
Yesterday we did this too, no?
No, we did yesterday the drush, which sounds a little bit similar because it said over there, over them, and then it says them, over kutzruchem. That was what we did yesterday. It's on the screen if you want to see it. That was what we did yesterday. But now we're saying a similar idea, but different pasuk. Here it's called Chag from the word Chag HaKotzir alone. It's also mashma that there's ksira on the Chag, the same as the Gemara said yesterday, and they can't mean literally. It must mean 7 days, 6 days after. That was what
It's
Rabbi
a similar
Yochanan.
argument, in other words.
Yes, but Rabbi Yochanan challenges the whole idea because you see by Sukkot that's also called Chag Asif. Doesn't mean over there that you do Asifa on the Chag, you're going to harvest on the Chag Sukkot itself, not on the Chag and not on the Chol HaMoed either. You're not allowed to harvest on Chol HaMoed either. So it must mean that it just means the season. During the seasons, so it's no drush. So Rabbi Yochanan challenges this drasha that it's not wouldn't be a good source to say that you could do Tashlumin on Shavuos, on the 6 days after Shavuos. That's the end of the sugya. If the halacha is true, the question is what the source is going to be. Yesterday we had 2 or maybe even 3 drushes. Today was another one which Lakish holds up. Rabbi Yochanan challenges it. Everyone agrees to halacha. The question only is what the source is. The halacha is that if you didn't bring the korbanos of Shavuos on Shavuos, you have another 6 days to bring the korbanos. Once the Gemara just mentioned in the last couple of lines that Chol HaMoed you're not allowed to do. It's good. The Gemara came in Mamish Agav that it said Chol HaMoed you're not allowed to do malacha. That it says Chagos, if you can't mean that it means you do malacha Chol HaMoed, you're not allowed to do harvest of Chol HaMoed either. And now the Gemara goes on a big bonus. We're going to go on a cruise about the halacha of doing malacha. Thank you. About doing malacha and Chol HaMoed. So the Gemara comes in, it starts over here, Mechad Tavas Filu, the Chol HaMoed, that's about says malacha. Rabbi Yochanan said so, and the Shlakish didn't argue. He gave in that you can't say that the Chagos it means the Chol HaMoed. Because everybody agrees you're not allowed to do malacha and Chol HaMoed. And the Gemara wants to know how do you know. This really should have belonged in the beginning of Moed Katan where it talks about this and malacha. Over there Rashi brings down, Rashi or the Rishon brings down this Gemara is where it talks about how do you know you're not allowed to do malacha and Chol HaMoed. What you're allowed to do, what you're not allowed to do, that talks about over there in Moed Katan, whole Masechta about it. But in this Masechta, we're talking about something else, but it came in Agav that you're not allowed to do malacha and Chol HaMoed, and where do you know? So that's going to be a side subject for today. Not immediately. What's the source that you're not allowed to do malacha? The Gemara is going to bring a couple of drushes over here also. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 drushes, I think, coming up. So the Gemara starts. Whatever happened till now is a different subject. Now we're starting a new subject. How do you know you're not allowed to do malacha and Chol HaMoed? The Tana Rabbanan. Now it doesn't really say that. If it would say that, then it would be Mamash Pasuk. It says guard the Chag Tishmor, not to do malacha for 7 days. It doesn't really say that. It says it's Chag HaMatzos Tishmor, comma Shivas Yamim Tochal Matzos Kashes V'Sicha. It says 7 days eat matzah, but the Gemara is cutting off the pasuk. It's Chag HaMatzos Tishmor Shivas Yamim. You should guard the Chag for 7 days. Then it says that there's a Chag for 7 days. So don't do malacha for 7 days. So it's a drash. You're allowed to do that in a drash world. In the pshat world, you make a comma. In the drash, in the pshat world, you have a comma. The drash will take out the comma.
He's quoting it, but he's chopping it up according to his own understanding. Right,
according to the drash. Not understanding, it's a drash. Since he writes it in a way that you could have read it this way, so there's also room for a drash that you're not allowed to do malacha the whole 7 days. The Yoshi says this is the source to say, or the remes to say that you're not allowed to do malacha and Chol HaMoed because you could read the pasuk that guard the Chag for 7 days, which means don't do malacha. Rabbi Yonasan says different drasha. Rabbi Yonasan, no, you don't need that drasha. I'll bring a different drasha to say that you're not allowed to do malacha and Chol HaMoed. It's Kal V'chomer. We can learn it now from a Kal V'chomer. Because the first and the last day that says openly you're not allowed to do malacha, and everything in between is surely going to also be included. Kal V'chomer. Ma Rishon U'Shvi Shein Kedusha L'Fnei L'Achrein L'Asa B'Asiyas Malacha Chol HaMoed Sheyesh Kedusha L'Fnei L'Achrein and Odin She'asa B'Asiyas Malacha. The first day is asa to do malacha, even though before that there was no yantif, and the last day is asa to do malacha, even though after that there's no yantif. So surely something which is sandwiched between 2 yamim tovim, the first day and the 7th day, surely it's also going to be asa. If the first day is asa and the 7th day, even though it's not surrounded by chag, it becomes asa to do malacha. So surely those days which are surrounded by a chag the middle 5 days are surrounded by the first and the seventh, so it's surely Aseh B'Asiyas Malacha. The Gemara is going to challenge that, then we'll see some discussion back and forth about that, but that's his drasha. This is Rabbi Yonason's drasha. The Gemara says a question, I'll show you other days that are surrounded by holy days, and they're not Aseh to the Malacha. It's not a valid drasha. Sheishes may be Shechichu. The whole 6 days of the week, are you allowed to do Malacha? Surely, even though there's a Shabbos before and a Shabbos after. So you see you're surrounded by holiness, and still you don't become so holy that you're not allowed to do Malacha. So just because the Chol HaMoed has the first and the seventh day is not a reason that it should become Aseh. That seems to challenge the drasha. Even though you're surrounded by holiness, it doesn't mean that you're Aseh to do Malacha. But the Gemara says, no, that's different. We're not talking about mamish mundane days. The regular 6 mundane days in the middle of the week. Yes, you're not going to make it Aseh b'Malacha just because before and after. But here, these days also as a korban musaf means it says in the Torah that you do bring korban musaf every day of Chol HaMoed. So if it has a korban musaf and also surrounded by the holy days that are Aseh b'Malacha, it also should be Aseh b'Malacha.
Meaning that it's not enough just that they're surrounded by the holy days.
It also has to be a korban musaf. Right.
Who's saying this?
The Gemara is analyzing Rabbi Yonason's Russian. The Gemara asks further, Rosh Chodesh Yochiach, Sheish Bo Korban Musaf, U'Moteh B'Asiyas Malacha. Rosh Chodesh has the Korban Musaf, it's still Moteh B'Malacha. Now, the Tosfos says the Gemara could have said, but it's not surrounded. But the Gemara is going as if the fact that it's a Korban Musaf alone maybe is the reason why it should be Aseh b'Malacha. And that's the Gemara saying, I'll show you other days that don't have Musaf, and still it's, that do have a Musaf, and still it's Moteh to do Malacha. And Rosh Chodesh allowed to do Malacha. There are other places where it's mashma that there was not so much work on Chol HaMoed, and the Rishonim talk about maybe means the women, maybe it means a minhag, but minadin it's more to do malacha on Rosh Chodesh. So the Gemara is saying if the point is musaf, so then Rosh Chodesh has a korban musaf, and still it's more to do malacha. So therefore, don't learn that Chol HaMoed that has a korban musaf is Aseh B'Asiyas Malacha. The Gemara is still challenging Rabbi Yonah, and it's not a reason to say that it should be Aseh to do malacha. The Gemara says no. Malav Rosh Chodesh ain't Kari Mikra Kodesh. Tama b'Chodesh Hamoed she Kari Mikra Kodesh. All the Kari Mikra Kodesh dinu Aseh B'Asiyas Malacha. That's the end of his drasha. That he finds one more point that Chol HaMoed is also called Mikra Kodesh. Mikra Kodesh, holy calling, on convocation, whatever the translation is, and it's or happening. They might say a happening mikra with a hay at the end. Some say that's the pshat of the word mikra. You know, it has aleph at the end. So,
what do you think it is? I understand. What is it supposed to be?
It's saying no. That's a side point. That it's called Mikra Kodesh. Something about the first, not only the first and last day is called Mikra Kodesh, also Chol HaMoed is called Mikra Kodesh, and that's the reason why it's also to do malacha. The Gemara might mean that it fell off from the fact that it's surrounded, and just saying Mikra Kodesh is enough of a reason that it should be also to do malacha, or the Gemara means the fact that it's called Mikra Kodesh together with the fact that it's surrounded by the first and last day.
So surely
right. So this was Rabbi Yonason's drasha to say that you're not allowed to do malacha.
This is conclusive.
Everyone agrees that the halacha is conclusive. The question only is what the drasha is. We have all these drashas, but everyone agrees to halacha. The question is, so the Gemara finished. The Gemara finished challenging it, and it stands, and it comes. But it's not clear what the Gemara means. Does the Gemara just mean Mikra Kodesh alone, or does the Gemara mean that it's surrounded by holy days, the first and seventh, and also it's called Mikra Kodesh?
Sounds like all
Not
three
so clear.
adding to the strength of the argument.
It could be. The Gemara, that's already two drashas. Rabbi Yoshia said because of the first one that said Chag HaMatzos to Shmor Shivas Yamin, and the second one is Rabbi Yonah said Kal V'chomer. Maybe he changed to the Mikra Kodesh. Maybe he means it's surrounded and also it's called Mikra Kodesh. We're up to the third one now. Tanya Idach, another drasha. We finished with the first drasha that had two opinions. Tanya Idach, another drasha. The Gemara is missing. The printer left out some words. At the end of the pasuk says Shivas Yamim. It also continues Shivas Yamim. It's just as if it would say. Which again, if it would say that, then it wouldn't be a question. It says openly, don't do malacha 7 days. But it's also a drash because really there's supposed to be a comma over there. That's me the pasuk. I'm sorry that I don't have it open. It says, end of the pasuk. Next pasuk, Shivas Yamim, Takribu Yishal Hashem. So it's really 2 psukim even. But if you don't stop, you take away the period, so you read it. So similar to the first pasuk, the first drasha, same idea as the first drasha, that Chag HaMatzos Shmor Shivas Yamim, but it's 2 different psukim, and therefore there's another valid drasha to say that you're not allowed to do malacha even on Chol HaMoed. Limun al Chol HaMoed she'asa b'asiyas malacha. Who is this? And Rabbi Kiva has another drasha for that. Rabbi Kiva Omer in the Sarach, you don't need your drasha. There's different drasha. Rabbi Omer Ela Moadei Hashem Mikva'ei Kodesh, and that's what the Mepharshim say, that it means Mikvah Kodesh. Ela Moadei Hashem Mikva'ei Kodesh, Shetikvo Sam B'Moadam. It says Mikvah Kodesh, and it's referring to Chol HaMoed. How do you know someone Chol HaMoed? Maybe it's talking about the Yom Tov itself. What is the pasuk calling Mikvah Kodesh? It says already that the first and 7th days is called the day of rest, Shabboson. So why does it say over here, Ela Moadei Hashem Mikvah Kodesh, which also means don't do malacha? Another drasha here is going to just mean Mikvah Kodesh alone. If the Gemara before, Hamdallah was pushing that before, it didn't mean Mikvah Kodesh alone. It just meant Mikvah Kodesh together with the fact that it's surrounded. If that's true before, then Abba Kiva is saying that Mikvah Kodesh alone is enough. The fact that it's called Mikvah Kodesh, that's enough to say that it's also B'Sis Malacha. If the one before, that's Rabbi Kiva, and if the one before, Rabbi Yonasan also meant that, so then this is the same as Rabbi Kiva. Rabbi Yonasan and Rabbi Kiva are saying the same thing. In the beginning, Rabbi Yonasan started talking about that it's also before and after, and then they more fell off of it, and just as Mikvah Kodesh. But here, Rabbi Kiva seems to say Mikvah Kodesh alone is enough, that it should be enough reason to say that it's also B'Sis Malacha.
If you go with that argument, then what about Pesach? Pesach is not surrounded. And it's because it doesn't have an end chag.
Not found.
Pesach doesn't have a chag b'sof. It's not surrounded. Oh, it does. I'm sorry.
First and 7th.
Why did I think it? No, because I'm thinking of Shmini Atzeret. There's an 8th day, it's an additional day. But
The first and 7th. The first and 7th is gone.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay. Now the Gemara goes on to say another drasha. Tan Yidach. Last narrow line. Tan Yidach. Sheishes Yamim. Tochal Matzos. Uvayam Shvi Aseres Lashem. It says eat matzah for 6 days. And the 7th day is Yom Tov, Atzeres Lashem. The Pashup Pshat surely means that 6 days is eat matzah, and the 7th day, besides not eating matzah, it's also a Yom Tov that you're not allowed to do malacha, which would imply that the days before you are allowed to do malacha. But the Gemara says the exact opposite on a drash level. That there is a similarity when we say the 6th day and the 7th day is so it goes. There's something way that the pasuk is comparing it, and it's saying that it is somewhat similar. Just like the 7th day you're not allowed to do malacha, the 6 days before, of course, the first day show you're not allowed to do malacha, but even all the preceding days also are similar to the 7th that you're not allowed to do malacha. But the Gemara says doesn't mean it's also the malacha l'gamri. It's not a yontif. You're going to learn out from here that you're not allowed to do malacha at all? No. Something special about the 7th day. The 7th day is that service hold back from malacha, and the days before that are not like that. Only the 7th day, not the 6 days before, not the previous days. The first day, yes.
It's a yontif, and the 6 days are not.
Right, but we're learning out on one hand, we're saying there's a mashmos in the pasuk that it is similar, that it's also a malacha. On the other hand, only the 7 days. There's something's different about it. It's similar and different. What is that going to be? So the chacham should figure it out. That the pasuk just hints to you that some things are asa. Doesn't say what. It's partially asa b'asis malacha, but not completely.
But we already know it's all the things that should not to do with food.
You're already very advanced. You're very advanced. We don't even know here that it's asa b'asis malacha. You're talking about what yet, what not. That we don't know. We're looking for the source, and we found in the source. Everybody found in the sources over here. 1, 2, 3.
This is the third break.
4 and 5. If you say that the second one is different than the fourth, means we spoke about Mikvah Kodesh, not so clear, but we'll make it into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We'll make it into 5. We'll say the second one was. Let's go through it again. The first one was because it says Chag HaMasos Tishmor Shavas Yamim. If you read it like that, so it says 7 days keep the Chag. The second Rashi was to say that it's surrounded by holy days plus that it's Mikvah Kodesh in between those middle days. The third Rashi was because you read it the next Rashi was the fact that it's called Mikvah Kodesh alone, without the fact that it's surrounded, just Mikvah Kodesh. And the fifth Rashi was because it says something about the 6 days being similar to the 7th day, that there is some similarity. 7 days also to the malacha. The previous days are also similar, but not exactly. What's that going to be? So we have to figure it out. Hashem wants us to figure it out, and that's why Chazal say which malacha you're allowed to do, which ones you're not allowed to do on Chol HaMoed. Everybody before also has to have some kind of a Torah Shabbat Peh to say that not everything's us. So no one's going to say it's mamash asa malacha. So all that came in as a bonus. Mamash not the subject at all. It has to do with Moed Katan, and the main halacha was this first thing that I said over here, that Chodesh HaMoed is in the yellow, Chodesh HaMoed also b'asis malacha, and we had 4 or 5 drushes How do you know that? How do they come in? Because the subject before was talking about how do you know that Shavuos is 7 days tashlumin to bring karbanis, and one of the drushes pointed on Chag HaKatzir. Maybe it means that the day itself you're allowed to reap. That was Rish Lakish's drush. Rabbi Yochanan said, if so, Chag Asif is not going to make sense because it can't mean on the other. It can't even mean Chol HaMoed because everybody holds you're not allowed to do malach on the Chol HaMoed. So the two halachas for today, without all the drushes, the two halachas are: one is yesterday's halacha that Shavuos, if you didn't bring the karbanis, you're allowed to bring it for the following 6 days. And today's halacha what Chol HaMoed it's also basis malacha. There is after all these drushes, there is a question in the postscript if it means the rice of Rabbanan. It could be this whole thing is an asmachta, and Issa Malach and Chol HaMoed might be Rabbanan. Those who hold that as the rice, they learn Gemara Kipshuto that it is the rice.
But it's not a real malacha, because when we say malacha, it means like turning on the lights and.
Right, so it's very nice how you're saying it, and the answer is going to be that when you turn on the lights on Chol HaMoed, you have to have a reason, had to do it. You start off that you're not allowed to do malach on Chol HaMoed. So why are you allowed to turn on the lights? Because it's a ma'aseh hediyot. That's a tzarech HaMoed. It's something that's not a professional act, and I need it for now. That's why I'm allowed to turn it on. Why are you allowed to turn it off? Because it's a davar of it. Because I'm losing money that's going to burn for nothing. But it's true. If you go like this, when you come to Chol HaMoed, the whole day you have to be on guard, alert. What am I doing? If I'm doing any kind of malacha, it has to have a good reason. Usually, the things we do usually are not so complicated. It's all ma'aseh hediyot, the regular things. And I'm doing it for now. I'm not doing it for later. But that's true, that if you're going to do malacha, that's not for the Chol HaMoed. It's going to be for something next week. Saying you're not allowed to do it. So that's true. That's a nice consciousness. You have to have a Chol HaMoed consciousness that you're not allowed to do malacha only if you have a heter.
So taking your family on a trip and driving in the car, that's.
Because it's the ma'aseh hediyot, then it's tzarech HaMoed. I imagine driving is the ma'aseh hediyot because everybody's doing it. You look outside, everybody's doing it. You have to learn it. Okay, but it's not considered professional. It's not considered something you have to go to professional. Most people know how to drive. Okay, end of that sugya. It goes back to the Mishnah. Everything's good.
Yes.
We go back to the
The
Mishnah.
3 brises, is that right? The last one's the 3rd brise?
I think so. The Gemara continues in the Mishnah. It says that the day of Shavuot, the story in the Mishnah was that Shavuos fell out on Shabbos, and you can't bring the kabbanis of the Ola Sriya Shalom Chagigah on Shabbos, so you bring it the next day. But they wanted to make sure no one's going to make a mistake and think we pushed off the Chag, like the Tzdukim say, that Pesach, Machras HaShabbos, that it's always going to be on a Sunday. So it's mutter b'hesped v'tainis. The way we're saying the pshat now, the Gemara is going to come out that it doesn't have any holiness to say that it's asa b'hesped v'tainis because it's the day that you're slaughtering. Shalom l'kaim it's every omen and aseres acher HaShabbos. Which the Gemara said, the Mishnah also spoke about that the Kohen Gadol doesn't wear his yontif clothing, or according to he doesn't do avodah in order to show that it's not a holiday. It's not Shavuos today. It's just bringing the karbanos without a holiday. The Gemara is a kasha, but Itmar Batanya Maisa Omeis Alaksa Lud, that we don't know who he is. Somebody died. A Jewish person died in Lud. And they started making a hesped. Rabbi Tarfon didn't allow them to make the hesped. The words of the Brisa say because it was Shavuos. So that doesn't make sense. You can't take it literally that it was Shavuos and everybody can't make a hesped. If Tarfon stopped them, everybody knows you're not allowed to make a hesped on Shavuos. So Yontif Sakadaita, could you say that it means Yontif? Even Yontif, whatever comes to make a hesped on Shavuos, that can't mean that. It means the day after. It must mean that it was the day of the slaughtering because the day after Shavuos is called Yom Tovach, at least according to Beis Shammai, because he holds you're not allowed to be in the Kabbalah Olariya on any kind of Yontif, even if it's not Shabbos, just Yontif alone, you're not allowed to. So that was the day of the slaughtering, and it says that he said you're not allowed to do Hesped V'Tainis. Our Mishnah said, that's what the Gemara is asking. Our Mishnah said that it's mutter Hesped V'Tainis, that the Yom Tovach is mutter to Hesped V'Tainis. And here in this story, it says that Rabbi Tarfon didn't let them to make Hesped V'Tainis because it was Yom Tovach. Isn't that a contradiction? The Gemara answers, maybe everyone's has the answer already. Lo kasha. Kam b'yom teshachol yos achar Shabbos. Kam b'yom teshachol yos b'Shabbos. Our mission that says mutter Hesped V'Tainis is only when it was really on Shabbos. Shavuos was on Shabbos, and we pushed it off to Sunday. Then it looks suspicious that it looks like we're pushing off the Chag, that the Chag is going to be on Sunday. Then we want to go out of our way to downplay it. People shouldn't think that it's Yom Tov, so we say what the best of the time is. But on a regular Shavuos, when it's not on Shabbos, and people slaughter the next day, according to Beis Shammai Shuli, according to Beis Hillel with the Eved, you can do it for all the 6 days. So then there's no chash that it looks like the tzdukim. The tzdukim was only when it came out on Shabbos and we pushed it off to Sunday. Then it looks tzeduki. Then it looks bad. because they would push it off. We would not push it off, and we're pushing it off also. That's when it looks suspicious, and we go out of our way to downplay it. But if it came out in the middle of the week, there's nothing to downplay. So the day after, or probably according to they still not only Yom Tov, even though you made Tov the whole week. So then it will be us the best for the time is because of the karbonos that you bring in.
So after Shavuos, the week after the 6 days after Shavuos is only has the times.
So that's what it seems in our Gemara. Some talk about that maybe
That's quite stringent.
maybe it's only when they are karbonos. When they have the karbonos, so then the 6 days is more chashuv because they bring karbonos. But nowadays, if there's no karbonos, maybe not. So Achavusha told me that the post can talk about it. This point is us the best for the time. It could be different in Hagen. And but what the Gemara did want to say that Dafka, yes, to be mutter best for the time, that's when Shavuos came out on Shabbos and he pushed it off to the next day. So then the next day, Dafka is yes, mutter best for the time. They talk about a little bit about our Gemara. Do you see anything about Isru Chag? Do you see in our Gemara Isru Chag mutter has been? It seems in the Gemara the only issue is only because Yom Tov. It doesn't seem that Isru Chag is plays a role over here. Isru Chag is not a reason to be assessed with the time. It means this case that it was the day after Shavuos. The Gemara doesn't talk about Isru Chag. It talks about Yom Tov. So this Gemara would be mashma that there's no limitation on Hesper V'Tainis on the regular Isru Chag. As Halacha L'Maisa, they bring down different customs. But in our Gemara, it would be mashma that it's put the Hesper V'Tainis on the Isru Chag. There might be in other Gemaras that mashma differently, but in our Gemara, just to analyze our Gemara alone, it seems to say that Isru Chag is not a reason not to do Hesper V'Tainis, only because Yom Tov. Means as far as what?
Only because what?
Because it's a slaughtering day of the karbanos. But let's say
Right, so
Isru
I'm a
Chag,
little confused because it's pushing off till Sunday, Yom Rishon.
when Shavuos comes out on Shabbos, do you bring the
Right.
Olasriya?
But it's not Yontif. It's just that you couldn't do the.
Right, but it doesn't look it. It looks, if there's a reformers that they say that Shavuos is supposed to be Sunday, and we say it's supposed to be on Shabbos, and we're going to bring all the karbanos, they're not going to bring on Shabbos. All the chagigah, the whole Am Yisrael is coming to bring karbanos. It looks like we gave into the reform. So in order to show that it's not, so we come a week to clothing, at least the Kohen Gadol, and we do the best with the tinus to show that it's not a holiday. That's when it's that's when it's suspicious.
We do have to.
Yes, because we want to show that it's
Because
a
we wanna
weekday.
show.
But if it will be a regular Shavuos that came out in the middle of the week and it's on time and we're not showing it doesn't look anything like reforms, so then there's no reason to make the downplay it.
So what I'm saying, what I'm hearing is that it has been Chinese is a much on the Chodesh Shamor.
How do you hear that?
Because if I'm doing a Hesper V'Tainis on Yom Rishon,
Yom
Well, I
Rishon
pushed
of
it off.
Shavuos. What does Shavuos have to do with Chol Hamoed?
oh,
There's no Chol
oh,
Hamoed
no,
on
no.
Shavuos.
So it's we talking about
Shavuos. Okay, that was the end of that sugya, and the Agadata is over. So now No.
serious
Back to the real thing.
that was
Okay.
fun.
They're both
Come
real.
back
though.
tomorrow.
Okay. The Mishnah starts. It talks about now about Tahara. Everything's going to be about the Tahara. The rest of the Masechta is going to be about different levels of Tahara. And the Chag is supposed to be Torah. The Karbanos has to be brought to Tahara. So here it starts. I tried to make some comments just to how to read it. And here I made two dots. It seems to be divided. The Mishnah is over here. So the first part of the Mishnah says, notably, this is very general. It's not talking about Yom Tov now. In general, the halachas of Karbanos, that's going to be called Kodesh. Kodesh is Karbanos. So when you come to be the Karbanos, you have to be Torah. So we're going into that subject, and it's relevant to the Chag, but not that's not about chagigah anymore. This is more about Hilchos Taharos, how Torah you have to be for Karbanos. So the main Mishnah what we're going to learn today is going to be the first part of the Mishnah, but the Mishnah we'll learn the whole Mishnah and then go back to the Gemara, which discusses the first line. Notably, Adayim lechulin ulamaisa lechuma, comma, ulekodesh matbilin, comma, ulechatas and nitmagayadav nitmagufo. That's the first Mishnah. So there's such thing called Netilas Yadayim. There's such thing called Tevilas Yadayim. Matbilin doesn't mean tovlin. Matbilin doesn't mean you go to the mikvah. Matbilin means that you immerse your hands. Tovlin would mean to immerse. Matbilin means to immerse something else. What are you immersing? You're immersing your hands. So that's to get the translations here. Chulin means regular mundane food. Maisa means Maisa Sheni, which it doesn't mean Maisa Rishon has no kedusha, but Maisa Sheni has kedusha, and you have to eat it in Yerushalayim, and you have to be Torah. Truma, of course, is close to the Kohen. Kodesh means Karbanos, and Chatas means when you're getting prepared to bring the Paraduma. Chatas doesn't mean a Korban. Chatas means Paraduma, and they made very, very strict laws that when you do the Paraduma, you have to be very, very Torah in order to do the Paraduma. Those Kohanim, the people that are taking care of making the paraduma ashes. So you have to be or having contact with it afterwards. The contact that you have with the paraduma, that's called like Meini da. It's called the chatas also. The paraduma is called the chatas, but it doesn't mean a regular carbon chatas. So again, just to get the terminology here, you have chulin.
And the paraduma had a regular shechita?
It was shechta, but it was not in the base of mikdash. The shechita of the paraduma was on Har HaZeisim, east, Kedma. It was that was where they did the paraduma. I think that they know more or less where it was because it was opposite the base of mikdash on the same level on the Har HaZeisim on the east opposite the open entrance to the base of mikdash. That's where the paraduma was
So they
made.
couldn't mess that up. I mean, that's for some-
If they messed it up, they messed it up, right?
Oh, yeah.
And if it was a treif, it's also messed up. But yeah, I think just to point out, I think that it's not. There are very many red cows. It's not like fire engine red, that it came
Right,
down.
no,
It's a regular, just like you have a white cow and a black cow. There's also a red. And if you have a picture someplace that you have a herd of hundreds of red cows, the chiddush is that you have. Right, it shouldn't have. It shouldn't have hairs. It shouldn't have black hair. Two hair. Two discolored, either any color, white, black, whatever it's going to be. That's called the discolor. But the fact that there's a red cow, that's not such a chiddush. Okay, so there are three levels of tahara over here. There's the Tilo Shadayim, there's Matbilin, and there's going to be what we'll call, let's say, Tovlin, that Nitma Kol Gufo. So the Allah is for Chulin and for Ma'aseh Sheni and for Truma. Before we'll see what it means, eating it or touching it, you have to wash your hands with a cup. That means Tilo Shadayim, what we call Tilo Shadayim. That's for the three levels of Chulin, Ma'aseh, and Truma. I didn't say that yet. And the Kodesh, you have to put your hands into the mikvah. The first group was Chulin, Ma'aser, and Truma. Over there, you have to do the Tilo Shadayim. For Kodesh, if you want to eat karbanis, if you want to touch the korban, so then Matbilin, you have to put your hands into the mikvah. It's not enough to do the Tilo Shadayim. All this is based on the cloud we know, we talk about the Stam Yadayim Shnios, that they gave a din of a Sheni, the different levels of Tumah. Rishon is a high Tumah, Sheni is less, Shlishi is less. Of course, on top of Rishon is even a Abba Tumah, and the mace is called a Viyabos. But hands would be considered a Sheni, and therefore you have to wash your hands with Netilas Yadayim for Chulin and Ma'aser Sheni and for Truma. You don't have to do more than that. But for Kodesh, if you're going to have contact with the korban, you have to put your hands into the mikveh. Some of the
Kodesh is everything to do with
Karbonis. Karbonis is Kodesh means Karbonis. Machavusa told me that if you go to the Rhodian Quarter, they have over there a museum of houses of the Kohanim, and over there they have very interesting. Besides big mikvahs, they also have a very small mikvah. You'd say like some size like a sink or something like that, and not the size of a sink. It's as big as a mikvah, which would mean 3 cubic amas. But they have it even like sideways, something that you couldn't go into. It will be like 3 cubic amas, more like a long sink. That it has the depth of an amma by an amma. Let's say call it 50 centimeters deep, 50 centimeters wide. But then and also make it a meter and a half long. And it doesn't look like so people wouldn't. It says it doesn't look at all like someone's going to go into the mikvah. His body. What was the purpose for tefillah? For putting your hands into it, because there's such thing called matbilan. When they ate kachim, they were very close to the base of Mikdash in Yerushalayim, and they would eat kachim in their houses, and you have to be matbal your hands. So it's very convenient to have a mikvah right there, and not the whole mikvah you have to go into to bend down. You just put your hands into the mikvah. That's what we're not used to it nowadays. We don't do it. But when you go to the mikvah, you put your whole body into the mikvah. But there's such a thing by kachim that you have to be matbal your hands. So you can see it if you take a tour of the Rhodian Quarter. And ulachatas and the korban, not the korban, the paraduma is even a higher level of tara that you have to do more. And nitmu yada, nitmu gufa, that his whole body. If his hands became tamei, or it means if his hands are shtam yadayim shnios, he'd have to go completely into the mikvah. So those are the three levels. There's a level of Netilas Yadayim and Tevilas Yadayim, and then Tevila Lagamri. So those were the first one. The first category included Chulin, Ma'aser, and Truma. Second category is Kachim, and the third category is a Paraduma. That's the one Mishnah. Next Mishnah. If his hands became shnios, then his whole body becomes tamei.
And what's the table? Tava.
Look on the screen, and you'll see that it's a new Mishnah. There's two dots over there.
Let's start now. Yeah.
Meaning it's a new
New Mishnah. New Mishnah. Tabalachulin. Now here's going to talk about the kavanah that you have. And you went into the mikvah, or your hands, whatever, but you had a intention of becoming Torah for chulin. You didn't think you're going to use it for you can eat ma'aser sheni. You didn't think you're going to eat truma. So the Mishnah is going to say that you have to have kavanah for the level that you want to make your tahara level, and it doesn't work for a higher level. Like the Mishnah says, it's going to mamish enumerate it. Tav l'chulin, and you can put on the word, you can put in the vav, and v'hofzik l'chulin. Also l'maisa, if he immersed for the purpose of chulin, and that was what he considered himself, that he was hofzik l'chulin. I'm now Torah l'chulin, but you're not allowed to eat ma'aser because your intention, even though you went to the mikvah, the same mikvah, but what was your intention? So if you went with the intention of becoming Torah l'chulin, it doesn't make you Torah for ma'aser. And each level goes up and up. Tava l'ma'aser, hofzik l'ma'aser, but also l'truma. Tava l'truma, hofzik l'truma, but also l'kodesh. Tava l'kodesh, hofzik l'kodesh, also l'chatas. And now the Mishnah sums it up. Tava l'chomor muter l'kal. It doesn't sum it up. It just says that if you went with the intention of a higher level, let's say truma, then you're good for ma'aser sheni and chulin also. If you went for ma'aser sheni, you're good for ma'aser sheni and chulin. But if you did for the first Mishnah lists out that you went for something kal, it only helps for that kal that doesn't go for more chomer. It doesn't go for more severe. So if you only had intention for chulin, it doesn't help you for ma'aser. You had intention for ma'aser, it helps you for chulin and ma'aser, but it doesn't help you for truma. If you did it for truma, it helps you for truma, ma'aser, and chulin, but it doesn't help you for kodesh. If you went for kodesh, then it'll help you for kodesh and everything below that, but it doesn't help you for the paraduma. But if you did, but like the Mishnah says, if you had a tefillah for something on a higher level, more intense, more severe, stringent, then it does help for less than that, but it doesn't help for more than that. It's not that. If you didn't have any intention, then it's not. The Mishnah seems to say that even you have to have some intention. What are you doing it for? We'll see tomorrow maybe more about chulin. So far it would sound, I think, that if you didn't have intention to anything, the mikvah without any kavanah at all, then it doesn't help. It has to have kavanah. You have to have kavanah. What level of tara do you want to be? Chulin, ma'aser, truma, kodesh, chatas.
So mitzvahs tzrichim kavanah.
It's not a mitzvah, it's a tara. Here the tefillah, the tara has to have kavanah. And it's not. You can say it's not been a mitzvah at this point. He's just becoming Torah. Later on, what is he going to do?
In order to do the mitzvah.
But it doesn't have to do with mitzvah tzrichas kavanah. It has to do with the tefillah needs kavanah. If the tara needs kavanah. That's the end of that Mishnah. And now the Mishnah continues with another halacha, which is already also maybe based on the previous halachas. And it says that if you were Torah, it might help for one level, but it doesn't help for a higher level. Before we spoke about the kavanah of going to the mikvah, now there's going to be a similar idea. Big day Amoritz, Medrash Lepushin. Amoritz means people that are ignorant, they don't know the halachas of Tahara. Pushin means there were, people that were makpid on Tahara. So even if a person, Amoritz, he went to the mikvah and everything, he thinks that he's very Tahar, it's true. But as far as the Pushin are concerned, if he touches him, it's kind of like he's touching somebody else's stomach. Means his Tahara, as far as the people that are makpid, they look at him like his stomach because he doesn't know the halachas and he tries, but there's no halachas, or maybe he's not so makpid because of his ignorance. So even though he thinks that he's Torah, but it's considered even a high level of tumah. Medrash means that it's like ava tumah. It's medrash is called that because when you sit or lie or step on something on a zav, so then it becomes tumas medrash. So that's a high level of tumah. So even though he's Torah, as far as all amrasim are concerned, but as far as the Pushin are concerned, he's mamish tameh. And the begadim, it's talking about the begadim, it's clothing, because they don't know the halachas well, they're not makpid. And the same thing goes further and further up. Big day Pushin, this guy's a big tzaddik, and he's very makpid, but he doesn't need truma. He's not Kohen. So even though he's makpid very much, and he went to the mikveh, make sure that he's Torah, but his clothing is considered a big tumah, a severe tumah, as far as people that eat truma. The truma eaters, they're makpid more, or whatever reason it's going to be. He might touch. We don't consider his tahara as far as the higher level. So somebody that is a makbid, it doesn't say chilukei between chulin and ma'aser, but whatever it was, he's a parush and he's makbid on tumah v'tara, but that's only as far as chulin and ma'aser go. But as far as truma, he would be considered tamei, even a tumah chamura, medrash likely truma, and it goes even further than that. Big deal, truma medrash l'kodesh, even though he's a kohen and he's eating truma and he's very tahor, but as far as the people eating kashin go, since he only was doing it for the purpose of Truma, they consider it Tameh. He's considered Mamash and Medris. Tuma Chamura, as far as the people who eat Kachim, the people who eat Truma are not considered Torah. And the next case, even the people that are eating Karbanis, and they're very Torah, but as far as someone who's going to be Osek, contact with the Korban, with the Paraduma, he's considered Mamish, a Medris, a Tuma Chamura. So here it goes again. Here it doesn't talk about Chulin and Maisa, but it talks about Prushin, and then it talks about Truma, Kodesh, and Chatas. That each level is considered Tameh as far as the higher level goes. And the Gemara brings two stories to say how far this goes, just to dramatize what we just said. Yosef ben Yezer, he was this Yosef ben Yezer, probably is the one we had before. I think it's probably the same one. Then in the Zugos, that he was the chassid of the Kohanim, but as far as the Karbanas go, if he's only doing it for Truma and he didn't do it for Karbanas, so then his kerchief would be considered a Tuma Chamura, like Avatuma, as far as people that eat Karbanas. And the next level, it sounds like if he means Tarsa Kodesh or Kodesh, he did it on the level of Karbanas, but his garment would be considered a medrus for the person who's going to have contact with the Paraduma. So we had 3 points over here, just to point out the 3 Mishnayos. The first one was about the 3 levels about Netila, not Tefillah Shadayim or Nitma Kol Gufo, and that's what we're going to talk about now. And the first halacha that it says Netila Shadayim for Chulin, Meiser, and Truma. And the next Mishnah spoke about when you go to the mikvah or your hands, whatever it is going to be, it has to be for a certain kavana, and that kavana helps for that level and down, but it doesn't help for a higher level. And the third Mishnah was about even if you're Torah on a certain level, for your kavana, but it doesn't help for the higher level. The Gemara is going to talk about today the first words that it says, the first line alone, that's what the Gemara is going to talk about. It says you need to Tilas Yadayim for Chulin and for Ma'aseh Sheni and for Truma. And the Gemara is bothered that another place it says you don't need to Tilas Yadayim for Chulin and Ma'aseh. That's going to be the Gemara's kasha, and then we'll see the teretz. The Gemara's the kasha Chulin and Ma'aseh Midbar and Tilas Yadayim. The Gemara's attacking the first words in the Mishnah. Our Mishnah says Chulin and Ma'aseh do need to Tilas Yadayim. The Gemara says, is that true? I'll show you a Mishnah. There's a Mishnah in Bikurim that says it doesn't. Over there, the Mishnah is contrasting three things over there. Just maybe I'll highlight it. Over there, it says something about Truma and Bikurim and Ma'aseh. And it contrasts them. And it says that Truma and Bikurim have something that Ma'aseh Sheni doesn't have. Just maybe I'll just help out over here. Maybe this make this a little clearer. Ma'aseh Sheni we're talking about, right? So here it says that Truma and Bikurim have something that Ma'aseh Sheni doesn't have. Truma, it has a whole list. We're going to be interested only in Netilas Yadayim. It's going to say, in short, it's going to say that for Truma and Bikurim, you have to do Netilas Yadayim. And for Ma'aseh Sheni, you don't have to. And that's going to be a kasha that our Mishnah says for Ma'aseh Sheni, even for Chulin and Ma'aseh Sheni, even Chulin has to have Netilas Yadayim. And over there it says Ma'aseh Sheni does not need, surely not Chulin. So that's going to be in short what we need, but we'll learn the whole Mishnah already. But it's going to say Truma and Bikurim need Netilas Yadayim, but Ma'aseh Sheni does not. That's all we need from this Mishnah. But what does it say? And also with Teunin Netilas Yadayim B'Arav Shemesh. Available with Truma Bikurim. Mashen came to Ma'aseh. Truma and Bikurim have a similarity. Both of them are Chai V'Isik B'Dei Shemayim. If somebody who's not allowed to eat them, who's not allowed to eat it, the Zor eats them, he's Chai V'Isik B'Dei Shemayim. The Zor is not allowed to eat Truma. He's not allowed to eat Bikurim either. Chomesh. That if somebody ate it by mistake, in order to do the tshuva, he has to bring a fifth more of the value, or the value or of the volume. That's machlokes. And Asur Lazarim, that's what we just said. We said this Asur Lazarim, in contrast, that Ma'aseh Sheni is not only going to be no punishment, it's not even Asur. It's mutar, the Zar is not even Ma'aseh Sheni. The Nechse Kohen, the below, it's considered the personal property of the Kohen. When someone gives truma to the Kohen, it's his. He brings Bikurim to a Kohen, it's his. He's allowed to use it to marry a woman. It's considered his money. Mashenka Ma'aseh Sheni, over here it holds that Ma'aseh Sheni is allowed to eat it, but it doesn't belong to him. It's not considered his own money. It's called Mammon Gavor. Ma'aseh Sheni Mammon Gavor. The other one is called Mammon Hedya. But this Mishnah seems to hold that the Ma'aseh Sheni belongs not to the Kohen. And also Olin be'echad umeya. If it got mixed into other things, how much do you need in order to make it batel? That it should be nullified. So 100 times more. But it's older be'echad umeya. Mashen came. You have to have 100 times more in order that it should become batel. But Ma'aseh Sheni doesn't have that severity. It can become batel and less. That's our main subject over here. It said that you have to have Tilas Yadayim for Truma and Bikurim. And also have Shemesh. When you go to the mikvah, you have to wait till the night. It's not enough that you just at full yom. You went to the mikvah, you also have to wait till the night in order to become Torah for the Truma. Like the first mission in Brachas, Me'em Masai, Kohen Shema Ba'arovim, B'shasha Kohanim, Chasan Lachol B'Truma. That means have Shemesh, Seisik L'chovim, that even though it went to the mikvah in the day, it's not considered Torah yet to eat the Truma and Bikurim until the night comes. This whole list. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 or so items that are considered the chumras. It only applies to Truma and Bikur. Masha'en came to Ma'aser. Ma'aser Sheni doesn't have these chumras. So that means that it doesn't need Netilas Yadayim. When you want to eat Ma'aser, it seems when you want to eat Ma'aser Sheni, you don't need Netilas Yadayim. If you don't need Netilas Yadayim here, even for Ma'aser Sheni, surely not Chulin. And our Mishnah says you do need Netilas Yadayim for Chulin and Ma'aser. That's the most kasha. And the more ends off kasha Ma'aser, kasha Chulin not Chulin. It seems okay. It should have been more. Kasha Ma'aser, kasha Chulin Chulin. That there's two contradictions here. It's really one big contradiction, but the Gemara is going to have two separate answers, so the Gemara takes it one step at a time. First of all, the Gemara says that this machlokes Tanam, which you find all over between Rabbeinu and Rabbanan, if Ma'aser Sheni is considered more than Chulin. Of course, it's holy, but does it have any chumras that more than Chulin? So this Gemara is going to bring that Rameir is the one who's lenient, and he's going to be the author of the Mishnah over there in Bikurim, and our Mishnah is going to go according to the Chachamim that Ma'aser is more severe than Chulin. Rameir doesn't consider the Torah necessary for Ma'aser more than Chulin, and the Rabbanan do. So that's what the Gemara found the machlokes. It's not going to be a contradiction. It's going to be a machlokes. What does it say? Rameir Rabbanan. The Tnan. Kol Ton Bias Ma'im Medivrei Sofer Metamis HaKodesh Apostolos of Truma U'Muter L'Chulin U'Ma'aser Divrei Rameir L'Chachamim Osun B'Ma'aser. Here it's talking about again the Sheni. Kol Ton Bias Ma'aser Medivrei Sofer. Anything that has to be going to the mikvah with Rabbanan means with the Raisa would not be Tameh. So we'll call it a Sheni. So Metameh as a Kodesh, that it can make Kodesh so much, that's called like, you can make a Shlishi, even a Revi. That's the way the Mishnah is termed this idea, that if it's Metameh something, it means that when it has contact with something, it's so Tameh that it can make something else Tameh. It means when this thing, which is a Sheni, touches something, it becomes a Shlishi, and it even could go on to make a Revi, and the Kodesh could become so affected by the Sheni.
Right?
Yes. A possible as a truma, if it has contact with truma, it makes it possible. Doesn't make it tummy. It means that the truma only can become to affect to become a shlishi. Truma can't become a revi. Truma is not vulnerable to become a revi. Only a shlishi. But chulin doesn't get affected at all. It means that chulin doesn't become a shlishi. So a sheni can't affect chulin, and also it cannot affect ma'aser. This is Rav Meir. Rav Meir says that ma'aser also can become a shlishi. It's the same level as chulin, that it can't be. It's only affected to become a sheni, but it doesn't become affected. It doesn't become a shlishi. If sheni is going to touch ma'aser, nothing happens. The chachamim say the chachamim also ma'aser. The chachamim say that the chulin. I agree with you that the chulin can't be affected by a sheni, but ma'aser does become affected by a sheni. If ma'aser could become a shlishi, so the Gemara found the machlokes between Rabbeinu and Rabbanan if ma'aser is more severe than chulin, and therefore the Mishnah Bikurim says you don't need Netilas Yadayim. What is Netilas Yadayim for? The Chaim David said Stam Yadayim. It's sheni. So over there it says in the Bikurim you don't need Netilas Yadayim for ma'aser because it holds like a mayor that the ma'aser sheni cannot become a shlishi. So there's no problem. Even though he has a sheni, you can touch the ma'aser because it's not going to become a shlishi anyway. But our Mishnah holds that you do need Netilas Yadayim for ma'aser because like the Chachamim that the ma'aser could become a shlishi. So if your hands are a sheni, you have to wash them with the Netilas Yadayim in order to get off the tumah, or else it's going to invalidate the ma'aser sheni, which is going to become a shlishi. So, we hold like the Rabbanan that that ma'aser sheni also could become a shlishi.
So you didn't
like our Mishnah.
So we need Netilas.
So you need Netilas Yadayim, but the Gemara is not finished there because that's only talking about ma'aser sheni. But by chulin, even the Rabbanan hold that chulin can't become a shlishi. So what's happening with our Mishnah? Over there, we just helped out that ma'aser sheni. We found out that the man that says also can become a shlishi. So you need Netilas Yadayim. Our Mishnah could be like the Rabbanan, not like a mayor. But the kasha is still going to be that chulin doesn't make sense. Chulin that it says you need to do time for chulin. Who's that? Even the Rabbanan don't hold like that. That's the Gemara's kasha now. Ela chulin kasha. We answered chulin ma'aser. It's not a kasha because our Mishnah could be like the Rabbanan of Rav Meir that say that ma'aser can become a shlishi. So you need the Netilas Yadayim. The Mishnah before is Rav Meir, but chulin kasha. The Gemara says and it's also lo kasha. Kan v'achila kan v'negia. Here the Gemara seems to say that Rabbanan they hold if you're eating the truma, if you're eating the chulin, you do need to wash the Tefillah Shadayim, even though the Rabbanan over there in the Mishnah Bikurim, they just argued on mice over there said, I'm sorry, this is this Bryce over the Tnan, where's this Mishnah? Torah, Perigan Aleph. Over there it says that Machlok Shemei and Rabbanan. The Rabbanan agreed to Rav Meir that chulin does not become affected, doesn't become a shlishi, but they said Maisa yes. So here it's saying that the chulin is not affected. They agreed to chulin, that's Maisa or not. So it seems to say that the chulin is not going to become affected, and that was the problem. So why should our Mishnah say that you have to wash for chulin also? The Gemara says the difference between eating and touching. Here they're just talking about touching. So then they say that chulin you'd be allowed to touch with hands of a sheni because it doesn't get affected. The chulin is not going to become tamei or pasul or whatever. It's not going to become any way affected by the hands that are a sheni that touch it. But our Mishnah that says you do have to wash, it's talking about you want to eat it. Till now, I just want to maybe I should have said Akdama when we first started. When we talk about a Tefillah Shadayim, we always talk about eating, right? When do we wash Tefillah Shadayim? When you eat. When you eat bread.
Or in the morning.
Okay, that's for ruach or for davening. But as far as food goes, it's only when you want to eat the food. If you want to touch the food, no one touches the wash Tefillah Shadayim. But that concept is not so simple. Means if it becomes tamei.
He's metame fruit. Oh.
When do we find the Tefillah Shadayim? When we wash the Tefillah Shadayim, when do we wash the Tefillah Shadayim? We, us. Today, when you want to touch bread, you wash Tefillah Shadayim when you touch bread? No. You wash Tefillah Shadayim when you want to eat bread. But so far, we didn't have this concept difference between eating and touching. And it says, nothing that not the Gemara saying it that our Mishnah that says nothing that means when you want to eat it. But if you just want to touch it, you don't have to. And it comes out that Rabbanan that say a chiluk between Meiser over there when it says that the argument Mashen came to Meiser, the Rebbe says that Meiser is not affected. Rabbanan say Meiser is affected. What do they mean to say? When you want to eat it. No, when you want to touch it. I'm sorry. When you want to touch it. And here they're saying that Meiser yes and chul not. This Mishnah that says that Rabbanan say that Mashen came to Meiser was saying that Meiser, the Rabbana, and I'm sorry, I got the wrong one over here. Rav Meir says that Chul and Meiser are the same. The Chachamim say of a Chachamim also the Meiser, but Chul they agree. The Gemara wants to say that they're talking about touching, and therefore, if you touch Chul, it's not a problem. But Amish is talking about eating, and therefore they agree Chul is a problem. If you read it, this is not going to stay. At this point, it comes out that Rabbanan would say that even when you touch Meiser, also you're not allowed, you have to wash Tefillah Shadayim. And Amish is saying that for chulin you don't have to, but for eating it, you would have to. But the Gemara is going to say right away, it's not true. When Rabbanan say Osim Meiser, they mean just when you're eating it. That's the most kasha now. First thing Gemara says, kan b'achila, kan b'negia. Over there, the Rabbanan say that chulin is not a problem. That's when you're touching it. But in our Mishnah, when it says that you have to wash for chulin, that's when you're eating it. But the Gemara is going to say it's not true. These words that said that Osam Meiser is not talking about touching it. It starts talking about eating it. This Bryce we just said a second ago, Osam Meiser is not talking about touching it. It's talking about eating it. B'achila the Meiser, aval b'negia the Meiser, b'achila the chulin, lo pligi. That they don't argue about even eating chulin. You're saying that when they eat chulin, you have to, they one agree that you also have to wash. But it's not true. They're just talking about eating meiser. This brisa that says a chiluk between Rabban and Rabbanan as far as meiser goes, they're talking about eating the meiser. So we still don't have how to reconcile that. Our Mishnah seems to say they have to even wash it for chulin, because the Rabbanan that are machmir, they're only machmir by eating meiser and not by eating chulin and not by touching meiser either. The Gemara answers, here the Gemara comes, we didn't think about it maybe, but now that the Gemara is telling us that what we spoke about till now, we did say the difference between bread and other kinds of things. Nowadays, it's special to everybody that you only wash when you eat bread. But that's not so simple. Why? The reason why you're washing is because it might be truma. In case it's truma, you just learn out that truma has to wash for. So then even if it will be other foods of truma also. But here the Gemara says the chiluk that there's more chumrah by bread than there is by other kinds of foods. And now, if we go back to the Mishnah, when our Mishnah says that you have to wash for chulin and for meiser, we're going to say that you have to wash your hands for chulin if you want to eat it, bread, if you want to eat bread. And even the Rabbanan say that you don't have to wash for eating chulin, that means only if it's not bread. But if it's bread, our Mishnah says you do have to wash. And that's where we get our halacha from, that you do have to wash when you're eating bread. And meiser, the Gemara is going to say meiser is going to mean that you have to wash for meiser only if you're going to eat, but not dafka bread, then it's going to be any kind of eating. And the Rabbanan that say that you don't have to, that only argue by meiser, that means when you're eating meiser, if you touch meiser, then you don't have to wash, even according to Rabbanan. And the Gemara ends off, the Amar of Nachman Kalanoti Adav Laperes Arezim Agasir. That's under the Gemara today, that if you wash for other foods besides bread, it's considered arrogant because they made no such takana. You only wash for bread, you don't have to wash for other kinds of foods. There is a law which doesn't say over here about if the food is wet. If you have a wet apple, so then you are supposed to wash, but that's not our subject right now. We're talking about if the food is dry. So for other kinds of food, there's no halacha to wash, and for bread, there is a halacha to wash. So it comes out that there's a machlokes. That's the end of the sugya for today. So what our Mishnah said, this is the beginning, without all the other Mishnahs that the Mishnah says, we didn't learn all that in depth yet. But the first line of the Mishnah, it says that there's a Tilas Yadayim for Chulan and for Meiser and for Truma. So first, for Truma is good. For Meiser is a machlokes, that Rabbi wouldn't hold it as Mishnah. Rabbi says that Meiser and Chulan, both of them are the same level. And our Mishnah that says, Notan Yadayim L'Chulan, it means when you want to eat Chulan, bread, or if you want to eat meiser, other foods, you have to wash. And Rabbi would say that there's no such halacha not for chula, not for meiser, even if you want to eat them, even for bread, he would say there's no such halacha of netilas yadayim. So the Gemara does remain with that machlokus remain Rabbanan. We pass like the Rabbanan. Meiser is more than chulin. So when you want to eat chulin bread, you do have to wash. When you want to eat even any other kinds of meiser, that's meiser sheni, you'd have to wash even though it's not bread. And truma, surely your hands are sheni, and therefore even if you touch it, you're also going to have to wash the netilas yadayim not to make it into a shlishi. That's the chazar over today's Gemaras. In the beginning, we had ended yesterday's sugya that Shavuos has tashlumin for 7 days. The next halacha was Chol HaMoed is asa b'asiyas malacha, and we had about 4 or 5 rushes about that. The end of the page said that when Shavuos comes out on Shabbos and is pushed off to the next day, that it shouldn't look suspicious like the Reform Tzedukim. So then make sure that it looks like a weekday. So downplay it by the Kohen Gadol not doing the avoda or wearing weekday clothing and with the best of the tinus. But a regular Shavuos that comes in the middle of the week, so then the Yom Tovah or maybe the Yemei Tovah is going to be also the best of the tinus. And the rest of the sugya for just for today, without saying all the differences, the rest of the Mishnah, the first Mishnah, the top of the Mishnah says that both for Chulen, Meiser, and Sheni, Meiser Sheni, and Truma, you have to do Netilas Yadayim. We came out that Rabbi would hold that you don't have to. This only our Mishnah seems to be only the Rabbanan, and even the Rabbanan, there's a chiluk between Chulen and Meiser, but they hold that you only have to wash your hands if you want to eat Meiser Sheni, not if you just touch it. And our Mishnah is talking about Chulen and Meiser, only if you want to eat it. If you just touch it, you don't have to wash. But even between that, there's a chiluk between Chulen and Meiser. Chulen, you only have to wash for bread, and Meiser Sheni, you'd have to wash even for other kinds of foods of Meiser Sheni. And Truma. If you want to even touch Truma, also you're going to have to wash and Netilas Yadayim in order to take off the Tumah of the Sheni of the hands. Hope that it was clear. And Be'ez Hashem will come back in a few minutes with Pirkei Avos.
Rebbe, thank you. But quick question, because it came up at the end. Would you make a bracha? Would you wash al netilas yadayim if you're not eating the fruits, but just cutting them, or fruits or vegetables?
No, you don't. You're talking about by Chulin there's no din at all, even to wash, right?
No, I'm just saying it then because it came up if you're touching wet vegetables.
So there's surely no, there's no halacha no. There's no halacha to wash either, even if you're cutting them up. The halacha is only when you're eating them. Same as l'chora ma'aser. It's not going to be more than ma'aser sheni. That ma'aser sheni is only when you're eating it is there halacha to wash, not if you're just touching it.
Why is that? If there's a din of tumah, if it.
Yeah, we're not talking about if you're asking if your hands are a sheni and it does affect the ma'aser sheni to become a
Exactly.
shlishi,
Right.
so
Why don't you have to wash?
you not have to wash? It's probably the answer is going to be because probably there's only gzeira over there. Is that true? If Rabbanan, this is only going to Rabbanan that ma'aser sheni can become a shlishi. So if you have hands that are a sheni, why should you not? It's not relevant to us. We're talking about chulin by us. On chulin, I'm glad you wash, and also on wet fruit, which our Gemara doesn't say. And the wet fruit is because right now it's becoming muksha, and my hands are becoming tamei. I'm able to make it tamei. So you're asking, why should there be a difference if you're touching it or if you're just the same question would apply to bread also. How come when you touch the bread you don't have to wash? You're not gonna be eating it. You're just gonna touch it. Okay, I'm sorry about that. When we come back in a minute.
How far did Rebbe get today in the daf?
Sorry, Leib Yaakov, I wasn't in it, so I can't give you an answer.
Thanks. Good morning. Good morning. Okay, I can't really stay on today. I've got some work I have to do. Okay, have a good day.
You too.
Shalom, welcome back. Shavua Tov.
Shalom Baruch. Shalom.
Thank you. So we're getting on, wrong one. Sorry, it'll take a second. Something's wrong. Okay.